The Chimera Ant King begins to embrace his human side in my review of Hunter x Hunter, episode 108. Tension begins to build as we are nearly days away from the Chimera Ant King's selection day, which is bound to be very disturbing and fucked up by the way they're describing it. But this was a very good episode right here because it focused on the antagonists of this arc, which are just completely batshit insane, and I love them. They don't seem like they mix together at all. There's a weird, freaky, overdramatic butterfly dude, a weird furry cat girl, some big-ass red dude, and frickin' Cell. And yet, like Shredder and Krang in the Technodrome, they just gel really well together. Most of this episode is about the Chimera Ant King sort of questioning why he's enjoying playing Gungi with this girl so much. And eventually he really starts to get very human towards her when he asks her name, and I can't believe we're finally learning it. Her name is Komugi. And then she immediately asks his name, and this throws him into this sort of like weird like freak out mode, and he doesn't really know how to address her. And that's when he confronts all of his royal guards and he asks them, you know, you guys have names, that's all cool and all, but what about me? What's my name? And they sort of give the typical answer. He's like, no, you're the king, you're the only king, and there's others out there that have your title and we gotta take them down. But then he's like, yeah, exactly, it's a title, it's not really my name, what is it? And as he's sort of questioning all of this, you can see that Poof, the butterfly guy, is like freaking out inside of his head because he doesn't want the king to go off on this weird path, and at the same time, he wants to say something about it, but he can't. This just shows how devoted he is to the Chimera Ant King. And there's a scene earlier where he actually almost kills Komugi, but he stops himself, and he then just starts like bawling, crying, because he realizes that he could have like ruined the chance for the Chimera Ant King to be like the greatest Gungi player ever. And then he just starts playing the violin, and then Yuppie just walks in and he's like, what the fuck are you doing? At the end of the episode is when the Chimera Ant King is really starting to become more human. He walks into the room where Komugi is, and she's being attacked by a fucking bird. I don't know, maybe they need much smaller windows in this place, but this thing is like clawing away at her, and then suddenly he jumps and then just destroys this bird with one swipe of his tail. And then he finds himself suddenly concerned with the fact that she's like injured by it, and he's still questioning why am I doing this? I came here to kill her. What's going on? Selection day is tomorrow. After all of this, Komugi is completely overcome with happiness and starts to bawl crying, and this is when the Ant King realizes he's starting to feel emotions he's never felt before. He's getting that age, he's gonna start getting pimples and getting hair in places he never had hair before. Other interesting parts in this episode is just getting to see Gon and Killua, Knuckle and Shoot and the whole gang just sort of setting up their big plan for how they're gonna infiltrate the palace. And for the most part, it's pretty simple. They're just gonna bust in, try to take down the guards, and this will give Melioran a chance to use his special abilities. And that's pretty much where it lies. But Gon, being the main character of the series, is very concerned about the character of Palm. He wants to make sure that she's going to be okay. And I don't like the way this is looking. You know, we never really got to see what happened to her in the last episode. And I'm afraid they're going to walk into this palace, and the first thing they're going to see is, like, Palm's severed head on the floor. That's the type of humor that Hunter x Hunter does. It has a very bubbly, happy opening. And then when you start to watch the show, you're like, this is a lot darker than it lets on. Like, I don't know, and that's what I like about Hunter x Hunter. It's very surprising, but still, this was a good episode. It focused on the villains, and just getting to see the Chimera Ant King slowly turn human is a really interesting process. And at the same time, it's like a, it's kind of like a ticking time bomb. You're sort of waiting for him to snap at any moment. That's probably the best thing about all of the Chimera Ant characters, is you really can't predict what they're going to do a lot of the time, and that's what I think I like about the King. He's just really off the cuff, just really crazy, and he can just be really calm one moment and just crazy the next moment, giving a crazy speech shrouded in aura. You know, that's just the type of guy he is. He's a very theatrical villain, too. And definitely the most interesting and compelling villain that they've had in the series so far. So I liked this episode. I really don't have any complaints, and that's a good thing. It really flowed really well. Most of the animation was good. This was not an action-based episode. This was another setup episode, but obviously the tension is building, and it looks like things are probably going to pick up more next week. And there's tons of other little moments that are really funny. I didn't even mention, there's a scene where, like, Pito is, like, sitting on top of this tower, and she's talking about how much she wants to fight Morel. He, she, it. I'm not really sure if, like, Neferpito is actually female. I only say that because she kind of looks female, but technically the Chimera ants are, like, genderless, and they can just have a certain appearance, but there was that scorpion girl. I'm going off on a strange tangent, Point is, Neferpito wants to fight against Morel and his clones, and that's because they're both sort of like puppet users, and that's pretty interesting. But still, awesome episode right here. Like I said, I actually have no complaints with this one, and when I have no complaints, I can fully recommend it, and so I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. There's probably flaws in there, but I'm not your typical reviewer. So, there it is, 10 out of 10. Check it out. Awesome episode. So, you guys have my thoughts about this week's episode of Hunter x Hunter. Had some pretty cool tension moments and some great characterization from the Chimera Ant King. But how did you guys feel about it? Did you have any favorite moments? Did you think this episode sucked? You can let me know with your comments below. Remember, guys, before you leave, like button. Freaking hit it, guys. Come on, it's one of the best ways to support our videos. Aside from subscribing and checking out some of the ones we got up top, of course. So, I'll see you next time, guys. Super Kami Guru 9000. Out.